Hello, everybody, and welcome to the latest edition of the Sportswriters podcast, as we are so infamously introduced now. I'm here with Stan Morris for another edition of football preview slash recap slash playoff outlook. Here as we recap Week 8 and hit the ground running into Week 9. Stan, how was your Friday night and weekend?
Very good, yeah. Saw a good game. Eureka, DMAC. Got to, go to that game. Heart of Illinois large division game, which was kind of a strange game, really. It was like Eureka was pretty much dominating the first half of that game, but they 4 fumbles. They just kept turning the ball over in DMAC's territory. They were driving for touchdowns and would fumble the ball away. And then, DMAC recovered one of those on the Hornet side of the field and was able to take it in for a touchdown right before halftime, and it's 7-0 DMAC, even though Eureka's kind of looked better at that point. And then DMAC gets the opening kickoff and takes it right down, and is right down there getting ready to score again to go maybe up 14-0, but Eureka stops them there. They got to like the 4-yard line and stopped them. A big goal line kind of stand for Eureka, and then Eureka took it down, got a field goal out of it to kind of finally get in the scoring column, and then from there it was just 4 interceptions, and Eureka just kind of pulled away from there. A very good defense that they have, and they were able to qualify for the playoffs again for the second year in a row, and now DMAC's facing 5-3 and going to Tri-Valley, which is not an easy task there with a number 5 ranked team in the state. So, but they're going to be okay, I think, playoff-wise, no matter what. But I'm sure they'd like to get in there and pull off the upset to go 6-3. So, yeah, that was a fun one for me. How about you?
So I was at Malone Field in Metamora. They played Pekin. I went to go see Pekin and see Metamora again, and that was actually kind of surprising that Metamora won, just because Pekin's passing game is so lethal. And yeah, I don't know, it kind of really came down to one stop in the second half, because the team scored on the first 7 possessions of the second half, alternating, and then Metamora's defense got a big stop, and then they carried it with them. They had a long drive to score a touchdown to go up 2 scores late in the game, and that ended Pekin's playoff hopes, because they fell to 3-5. I think Pekin, had they won out, probably would have gotten in, because they would have had plenty of playoff points. But Metamora, their Coach Pat Ryan said this was our playoff game, which is kind of weird hearing him say that.
Right.
When usually they're making the playoffs. But no, the game itself was just fun. The first half there wasn't a ton of scoring, but the teams it seemed like momentum was swinging every possession. One team would get a stop, or one team would score, and then there would be an answer. But no, it was a pretty fun game overall. Pat Ryan did something different with the seniors this year, I should say, for senior night. It was the last of 3 home games at Malone Field, which was kind of different. So he, instead of just walking off the field and whatnot, he had all the underclassmen line up and form a big tunnel, and he said something about all the seniors and announced them, and they ran through the tunnel, and I don't know, the kids were pretty excited. A lot of smiles, a lot of tears, I think, as every senior night has
right.
When you're used to playing at home for 4 years, to going through the different classes and whatnot. Right. But overall, I thought it was a pretty good night. Some crazy games on the small school side, though.
Yeah, there were. Farmington almost looked like, that Abington was giving them a great game for the first half. He actually was leading 21-20 right before the half, but Farmington was able to score right like a minute or so left, or maybe even less than that, right before halftime. They were trailing 21-20 at that point when they scored. Then they scored, ended up scoring 35 in a row, and kind of ran away with that one in the second half. So they're 8-0, looking to go 9-0 for the second year in a row in the regular season. So good for them. They can just kind of continue to do what they're doing. A wild one in Elmwood, though. That's a game, man. If I could have been in 4 different places, I was talking last week, about having four great games that were on on the docket for the small schools, and that was one of them. It was like, man, I wish I could have gone to that game. And certainly now that you see that, it was 42-38. Last second, Elmwood takes the lead with Sam Hedder catches a ball, dives for a ball in the end zone, catches one with 14.3 seconds left to go in the game. Elmwood thinks that they've got the win. Kind of a seesaw battle the whole night. They lose their quarterback, McKinty, to a collarbone issue in the first quarter, and Jimmy Houlihan, which was their quarterback last year, comes in and kind of helps them lead them and look like he led them to a last second win there, but then Knoxville makes a pretty decent return on the kickoff, and we got like 9 seconds left to go, and they their quarterback throws kind of an underthrown ball. It was a kind of hitch and go thing, and so he went, but then the ball was underthrown, so he had to come back for it, and their corner, Elmwood Brimfield's cornerback, slipped, and Knoxville's guy took it all the way in for a touchdown, no time remaining, and kind of heartbreaking way to lose a game like that. I mean, that I knew that those teams were pretty even, and certainly, I mean, Knoxville's won now 6 in a row. They're really on a roll going forward, and Elmwood will be fine too, even though they lost their quarterback. That's a tough loss for them. But like I said, Jimmy Houlihan is a guy who led them to a 9-2 season last year as their starting quarterback, and they get Vince Lindsay back, who was there, a really good tight end, defensive lineman guy that really will help them going forward too. So they're still in pretty good shape moving forward, but you never like 2 losses in a row is something that Elmwood isn't used to doing. They haven't done that since 2010. So, and then Princeville goes to 7-1. They beat Stark County, a rivalry game, and Stark County certainly has that tradition there. Only a 7-0 game at halftime, but then Princeville kind of kicked in and really got their offense going in the second half. Adam Stedden had another good game offensively, over 100 so yards again. Defense again. Actually, 20 points. That's the most. Stark County scoring 20 points. That's the most that Princeville has given up all year in a game. And so they have this weekend. They have Mercer County, which is another traditional power. A lot of tradition that they're facing there. But certainly Princeville wants to go 8-1 and get that home playoff, game, which they haven't had in a while as well. So, yeah, North Fulton qualifies for the playoffs. They beat Peoria Heights 22-0. So they're another qualifier. So those, some really good games on the small school side. How about you on the large schools?
Yeah, I think there's definitely some good games. I think the biggest surprise was Canton beating Morton at Morton. Obviously, Canton fighting for their playoff lives. They were 4-3 entering the final 2 weeks with games against a 6-1 Dunlap and now an 8-0, or excuse me, a 6-1 Morton and now an 8-0 Dunlap team coming up this week. And they needed at least one to get playoff eligible, but it looks like they're going to need to beat Dunlap too to make the playoffs. So they definitely kept their season alive with the big 42-22 win against Morton. A very physical game that Morton may not have been prepared for. In fact, that's what Coach Tim Briley said following the game. Canton just came out and it was physical. They ran the football. Morton couldn't get the stops that they needed. And really, Canton's defense, they did a real good job of bottling up Bradley Getz and Nolan Donald, 2 of the 3-headed rushing attack. Jarrett Kreider led Morton in rushing with 141 yards. Getz had 29, and Nolan Donald only had 19. So they really did a good job of bottling it up. Morton's got a tough game. They've got senior night at Carper Field on Friday against a good Washington team. Washington kind of worked some things. They got 3 passing touchdowns from Caleb Fisher and a 49-0 win of over East Peoria. So good senior night win for Washington. Dunlap went to Limestone and won 49-20 there. Charlie Mangieri with a rushing touchdown in his famed Wildcat quarterback. Stick your Division I tight end at quarterback and let him run the football or throw it or give him a couple of different options. It's tough to stop. But overall, Dunlap they're just good all around, and they just played another good game. Kind of took the foot off the gas a little bit. Yeah, and then Richwood's going at Normal West, kind of a game that I expected Richwoods to win because Normal West lost their star running back in Genesis Forrest, who had a fractured fibula, I believe, and so he was out for the season. But Richwoods led the game 14-7, I believe, at halftime. Yeah, 14-7 at halftime, and then the Coach Hess of Normal West, he said we just didn't match the intensity because they knew Richwoods was playing for a playoff spot to need to get a fifth win. Richwood sits at 4-4 though, as Normal West kind of got some things going, scored 21 points in the third quarter, and Malik Turner and Armani Forrest kind of stepped up, and they threw the ball a little bit. Normal West did. They threw the ball a little bit, and that's something that I know. I talking with Coach Brown, he knew they could do, but didn't think it was one of those things that they were necessarily comfortable with. But they threw the ball 7 of 10 passing, and that was another way that they could keep the offense off balance, or the defense off balance. And then Notre Dame with the Champaign Centennial got a 42-0 win. And Notre Dame is now playoff eligible. They're 5-3, have won 4 straight. So they're rolling a little bit. They face that Normal West team this coming weekend. Richwoods faces that Centennial team this coming weekend, and a lot more playoff stuff on the line that we can get into in a little bit. But then Saturday at Peoria Stadium, Peoria High was playing Champaign Central, all the Champaign schools, and playing the Peoria schools this week, it seems. And that game was crazy because I was on the field during pregame. I got there at like 1:15-ish, a little after, I think, and talked with the athletic director, Brian Duffy. He's like, we're gonna get the teams out here, do a shortened pregame warm up, and then we're just gonna go. And so they kicked off at like 1:47, trying to beat the bad rainstorms that came in, later that night, which obviously was no problem. But during pregame, it just started pouring rain, right. And so the field got real nice and wet, and as the teams were moving the ball up and down the field, like you could see their footprints. It was like the first snow of the year. You could see their footprints in the grass, with all the mud. And by the end of the game, it was really muddy. But Champaign Central actually took the ball down the field and scored first. They ran a QB wedge play. They run the wing tee, ran a QB wedge play, 8 of the 10 plays on that drive, and then scored first. And then Peoria High kind of got the ball rolling. Coach Thornton and Karan Taylor, who returned to the game after dealing with the throwing shoulder injury, they had mentioned that they were planning on coming out and passing to start the game, and the terrain, the field being so wet and kind of some iffy weather early in the game, they had to switch their game plan up and run the football a little bit, and they eventually opened up the pass game a bit. But it, for the most part, is a pretty run dominant game just because of the conditions. That's what Champaign Central likes to do. They did a real good job of holding the ball away from Peoria High. I think they maybe only had 1 turnover, 1 or 2, I don't know. So I think they did a really good job, especially if you looked at the sideline. Peoria High had probably twice as many kids as Champaign Central, but Peoria High gets playoff eligible with their 5th win, and yeah, I don't know, big week coming up.
Yeah, there is. Yeah, week 9, got to get qualifying for playoffs, or if not qualifying for playoffs, you're looking for a better seed. You want that home playoff game, and all of those things are on the line this weekend. So, yeah. Yeah,
there's so much more than just getting to a 5th win or a 6th win, Obviously 5, you've got a shot to get in based on playoff points, which is combined opponent wins added up. But then you get to a 6th win, you clinch. 7 win, you're possibly going to get a home game in the playoffs to start out in the first round. And, obviously the seeding matters too. So it's not like these teams that are 8-0 or or 7-1 or 6-2 are gonna absolutely rest their guys and lay an egg in week 9. They're gonna go at it because they want to they want to get that playoff seed,
improve their spot. Yeah. Because it's all about matchups when it comes into the playoffs. And those points are kind of the way it is. Certainly, those points. Somebody's 35 points isn't maybe as the same as somebody else's 35 points because they play, upper class. They're playing. It's like in my small schools, you got some 3As that are playing 6A, 7A teams possibly, and so it's a little different with a 3 and 4, 3 and 5, or whatever 6A team as opposed to one that's in 1A or 2A.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, it's a little kind of misleading sometimes as to how those the matchups are, but you have to go with the system that's in place, and that's what they're going to do. On the small school side, there's really only one of those you're in or you're out kind of games this weekend, and that's Mid-County and Stark County. They're both 4-4 going. The one that wins is probably, both of them probably are looking like they have enough playoff points to get in. So it's like whoever wins is going in. The one that doesn't is going to be sitting and watching that playoff pairings release thing. And so a lot on the line for that game, certainly. And Mid-County comes in. A lot of tradition that they're going to be facing with Stark County and that crowd, and they've won. Stark County's been in the playoffs 21 years in a row. They want to keep that string going, and so they're going to be pushing to do that. But Mid-County's coming off of an impressive loss, if there's an impressive loss. The moral victories. I know coaches really don't like moral victories, but if there is one. Mid-County had one because they took Anawan Wethersfield into overtime and really were right there. And he actually took the lead in overtime. They scored first. Brett Woodside, their running back, first play on overtime, went 10 yards, touchdown, and so they kicked an extra point. So they're winning, 35. They got and so Anawan Wethersfield gets the ball, and 3 times, not much yards. They're facing a 4th and 7. Their quarterback, which is a freshman quarterback, coming in because their quarterback was hurt. He throws to Brendan Shaw in the end zone, touchdown. They get to within point, and then they decide they're going for it. They're going to not go for the tie and go for a second overtime. They're going to go for the win, and the same two guys connected again, and they got pulled out the win. Anawan Wethersfield did so. Mid-County build a lot of confidence from that. They're a pretty strong team coming in, and so we'll see what happens in that game. But that's the one of those 4-4 games. Do you have any 4-4s going against each other, or something that's like a playoff?
So the big schools kind of have some weird scenarios going on right now.
Yeah.
And Steve Susi, who's kind of the IHSA guru, the Joe Lenardi of high school football in Illinois, does all these playoff projections and stuff. And he's predicting right now, entering the final week, that teams with 39 playoff points will get in, and teams with 38 maybe get in, depending on what happens.
Right.
So the middle Illini right now, Dunlap, Washington, and Morton are in. They clinched their berths. They're in. Canton, as I mentioned before, is 5-3, and you 5-win team. Maybe you get in, maybe not, but they're going to have 33 playoff points at best, 34 playoff points at best. So they really need to beat Dunlap, or else they're not.
It's never been that low before. I think 35 may be the lowest it's ever been before. So
yeah, and so they're on their home turf, which is nice. Huge home crowd to back them. Senior night. It's going to be an emotional game, I think, and it's going to be a physical game because both times I've watched Dunlap and when I watched Canton earlier this year, they play physical football, and so we'll see who holds up, who reigns supreme, who's stronger. That's going to be a big football game. I don't know if I'll be out there. I don't know where I'm going to be yet, but that's going to be a huge football game. Dunlap can win the Middle Illini outright, and I'll have to do some research, but Metamora and Washington have dominated the conference ever since its inception. So, they've got a lot to play for too. Let's see, the Big 12. The Big 12 has 3 teams in: Normal Community, Normal West, and Danville. They all have their 6 or more wins, and they're in. The three of the 4 Peoria schools, Notre Dame, Peoria High, and Richwoods, are all kind of an interesting, I guess, case-by-case basis of whether they'll get in. Richwoods, if they beat Centennial, they're in. Richwoods already has 38 playoff points, so they'll clearly have the playoff points. They'll be fine. Peoria High, sitting at 5-3, only has 32 playoff points right now, so they're looking like they're going to have to beat Galesburg, which is no easy task either. Tim Doherty always has his teams well coached, but Peoria High is going to have to win, and that was Tim Thornton's message after the game on Saturday. That he said, "Hey, look, we need to go out and win this game. There's no resting." So they're not taking a 5-win season, as they don't think they're going to be in. I don't think that's kind of I guess I'm paraphrasing him a little bit, or maybe reading into things, but that was kind of what he described to me. Notre Dame plays Normal West, who just beat Richwoods, and Notre Dame can get in if they win. Like Peoria High,
Right.
with 6 wins.
Right.
However, if they lose to Normal West, and that game's on Saturday, by the way, so before the pairing show begins, if they lose to Normal West, they will have either 38 or 39 playoff points. So they really need Rock Island Alleman to win against Bloom Township, and that's no easy feat. Both of those teams are 5-3, and Bloom Township has, the losses they have are close losses to quality teams, and Alleman, they just lost to Moline coming off a loss last week, so they'll be fired up. That's going to be a good game, but Notre Dame can take care of business at home on Senior Day and wrap it up. So the Big 12 could have, including Bloomington, who plays Danville, and Bloomington will have the playoff points necessary if they beat Danville for a 5th win. So the Big 12 can have 3 or 7, up to 7 teams in the playoffs. So it's kind of crazy. Kind of crazy for me. I'll definitely be monitoring Twitter, trying to figure out who's going to be in and out.
Right. Yeah. Well, Farmington's going after, like I said, they play Lewistown, so they're going for that 9-0. Certainly a home playoff game again, but then they're in that iffy, are we going to be in 2A or are we going to be in 3A? They've kind of been in that 2A range most of the season, but this past playoff outlook has them in 3A as like a top seed in 3A. But even Toby Vallis says, again, there's the matchups. You would think maybe 2A would be better, but then there's some of those 5 and 4s and teams, some of the Catholic schools that have played up, and have maybe had really a lot better than 5 and 4. The record shows, but you never know what you're going to get in the playoffs until those pairings come out. But they're looking for that 9-0. Princeville shooting for 8-1 to get a regular, get a home playoff game. They've got Mercer County again, so they're going to have to go after that tradition of Mercer County and try to get to 8-1, and they've got a kind of a lower playoff points. So depending on home, that kind of plays into factor if you're getting a home playoff game too. So they definitely want to make sure they get it by going 8-1. Elmwood Brimfield, they're going to try to snap that 2-game losing streak. They go to Rushville and should be able to win that game. And Jimmy Houlihan's going to have some first-team reps now, and this week in practice to be ready for that game and moving forward and seeing where they're going to be. Eureka is looking, again, another one, the team that's looking for a home playoff game, and 6-3 and 7-2. That's where you're probably not going to get one if you're 6-3, but if you go 7-2, you can get one. They haven't had a home playoff game since 1989, I believe. Coach Bachman said so. Haven't won a home playoff game since '85. So they're after that. Again, like we said, a lot of things on the line this weekend, and that's one of them. DMAC again, tough task with Tri-Valley going to their place. Last year it was, the battle of who's going to be the number one seed, basically, because they're both going in unbeaten last year, and that was at DMAC. Great game there. It was a wild game that went right down to the wire last year. This year might be a little bit different with what's going on this season. But in the Smalls, we've got 11 schools that have already qualified for playoffs. You got Farmington, Annawan, Weathersfield, Princeville, Bushel Prairie, West Prairie, Elmwood, Eureka, Fieldcrest, Abingdon, Avon, Knoxville. Those guys have all qualified. North Fulton, Hall is another one that qualified. They're 5-3, but they won the small division of the Three Rivers, so they're in. But so a few more looking to get in this week. So always an exciting time, right?
Yeah.
Can you believe it's week 9 already? I mean, it's like
crazy.
What happened to the year?
It's crazy.
It's week 9.
We were just talking about that before we launched the podcast too. Our producer Matt Dayhoff's like, so are you ready for basketball? No.
Yeah.
Still football and volleyball season and track and cross country, or I guess not track, but cross country and
cross country.
No, not ready yet.
Yeah.
I will say the one game of interest, I mentioned Washington and Morton. Both teams are in. They both have 6-2 records coming in, but they've got a big game at Carper Field Friday night.
Oh, yeah.
The winner's probably getting a home playoff game, and the loser's probably not. And so that's another huge game. I think Morton trying to bounce back from a loss on coming back on senior night, honoring a senior class that's really helped turn the program around. And then Washington's they're rolling a little bit, trying to come in and get another home playoff game. That's something that Coach Darryl Crouch talked about after the Dunlap game when they lost on their home turf. He's like, we can make a decision now. We can go and take it week by week and play for a home playoff game, or we'll end up on the road or something if they get in. So definitely a big emphasis for Washington and Morton both to try and get a home playoff game. And the difference between the two right now is 1 playoff point.
Yeah.
So that'll be interesting too. And the way the seeding works, the latest projections, we could see, area teams playing one another in the playoffs, in the first round of the playoffs. One of those teams in Notre Dame, if they get in at 5-4 and Alleman wins and they get in, they could be playing, a top seeded Dunlap or something
Right.
In the first round. So
Same on the Smalls. We could be looking at a Farmington Elmwood second round playoff game again, like it was last year too, and has been before in the past. So we'll see what the matchups are. About what? 8 o'clock? Is that start of the
the start
8
of
to 10?
Saturday evening on Comcast Sportsnet Chicago, 8 o'clock to 10 o'clock. The playoff pairings preview show. We'll have full coverage, talking with coaches and whatnot, in Sunday's Journal Star and online at pjstar.com. But I'm really excited for this week. I can't believe it's week 9. Can't believe the season's ending.
Right.
One last pick 'em before the playoffs.
Pick some games. All right.
What do you think of? Man, I don't know. Let's start with DMAC and Tri-Valley.
I just don't know that DMAC's going to be able to go into Tri-Valley and be able to come out away there with a win. They certainly have the talent to do that, but Tri-Valley has really shown this year that, they're just such a machine. So I'd have to say Tri-Valley is going to get that one, but I can see DMAC giving them a fight. So we'll pick Tri-Valley.
Stark gonna make the playoffs?
That's a great question, because that's one of those pick'em type games that I can see them being so focused for that game and all that tradition and all, getting that home crowd really pumped up and excited that they can come away with a win there. But Mid-County's playing very well, so Today I'll say that Stark County pulls that thing out and keeps that streak going. But that may change in a few days too. We'll see. Man, that's a toss-up. That's a hard call. But I'll go with Stark County getting the win there because they're at home and they're going to be charged up. They don't want to be that senior class that sees that streak ended.
El Paso at Eureka.
El Paso, that's one of those old-time rivalry type games that used to be back in the day. I think Eureka, again, they've got that the defense that can do it, and they've got they certainly want to get that win to get a home playoff game. So I'll go with Eureka taking that one.
Cool.
Yeah.
You wanna?
What, large school side?
Yeah, do a couple.
Let's see. There's week 9. There it is. Okay.
The very end of the sheet.
Let's go Washington Morton.
Oh, gosh.
Start with that one.
I haven't really thought about it yet. I think, man, I don't know. I think Washington's going to have the horses to do it. I think they can play a little more physical with the line play up front, and I think that's where the game's going to be won. They got a couple of guys that can push the pile and push the line, and I think it's going to be a close game, though. I think it could be one of those shootout type games.
Dunlap Canton.
I think Dunlap's just too much for Canton. That Dunlap defense is insanely good. Some say that they're on par with Normal Community, a 7A school that plays a lot of guys one way, which is pretty incredible. I mean, their pass rush with the 2 defensive ends, Ryan Erickson and Josiah Meeman, and then you got Charlie Mangieri at linebacker, and then some decent cover corners, guys with height, guys with speed, and then Luke Benioff, coming down from the safety position. Their defense is just incredible. I think Canton's ability to pass is going to be something that's big to watch here. They've been getting the ball in Nathan Lucas's hands quite a bit, running the football the past few weeks, and he's a big play threat in the passing game. I think he, last time I looked, was averaging like 35 yards per reception, which is pretty insane.
That's not bad. Yeah.
And for a team that doesn't pass the ball, that's huge.
Right.
Or doesn't pass the ball very often. So I think I'm going to go with Dunlap by 2 scores, but I think that game's going to be fun just because of how physical it's going to be.
How about Normal West at Notre Dame? I'll throw another one in for you.
Saturday afternoon game.
Yeah.
Man, Notre Dame's rolling right now. They've got a lot of guys because they've been featuring, trying to play guys one way and bring in the rested guy, but also go with the hot hand a little bit. But Normal West has been solid all year. But without Genesis Forest, man, I don't know. I mean, they played really well against Rich Woods. To come back in the second half, I have to imagine that they're sitting here wanting a home playoff game next week. I'll probably go with Normal West, but I think it'll only be, a 1-score game. So, yeah.
All right.
That's I guess this is it for the regular season. At least we'll probably have at least one more next week. Probably try and talk to some coaches or something. Play a little different playoff format. And maybe preview it a little bit too. But again, thanks for joining us and listening in and watching on Facebook or YouTube if you're watching this, after the fact. Thanks to Matt Dayhoff producing for us all season long. Yeah, hope to see you out on Friday night or Saturday afternoon at a game, and come up and say hi. I don't think either of us are too shy. Thanks again for listening. Please subscribe to PJ the Journal Star. You can do that at pjstar.com/subscribe. If you subscribe to the print edition, I believe you also get the digital edition for free. Matt's shaking his head yes for confirmation. Huge help. So yeah, please support us, and if you certainly enjoy us doing stuff like this and our work. So yeah, I guess that's it for Stan over here, and Matt, thanks for listening.
Thank you.